right, thank you so much for staying with us. Time now for To The Point. And tonight on To The Point, we break down a rather complex topic, that is child custody and maintenance. Now, let's start here by establishing who a child is. Now, the Children's Act of 2001, same as the one for 2022, as Miss Anita here, our advocate, just corrected me on that, refers to a child as a human being below the age of 18 years. Now, the Act also says that custody with respect to a child means so much of the parental rights and duties that relate to the possession of the child, while on the other hand, legal custody means so much of the parental rights and duties in relation to possession of a child are conferred upon a person by a custody order. Now, let's take a look at our next slide here. And according to the law, every child is supposed to receive care and support from the parent, and the parents are expected to provide for the child, whether they are married or not. Child support can be filed by either a parent, a guardian, or a custodian of the child, and some organizations can help you file for child support. So this next one is interesting because we take a look at some of the lengths that parents go through to simply be with their children. Now, an Ecuadorian man changed his gender to help him win custody of his daughters. His official documents now list his new gender identity as femenino, that is female, yes, female. Renny Salinas Ramos, aged 47, said the laws in his country favor mothers over fathers when it comes to children's custody battles. Let's quote him here because he says, "I am very sure of my sexuality. What I have sought is that I want to be a mother so that I can also give the love and protection of a mother." Let's pause there, okay? Let's pause there because at this point I want to engage my guests who are with me in studio. Mr. Joe Sampson, who is a father, Mr. Michael Onyango, member, Men Engage Alliance, that is Khmer, and executive director of Men Against AIDS in Kenya, and of course, Miss Anita Masaki, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Karibuni sana, lady and gentlemen. And I must mention, we shall be joined by Dorothy Omolo, a counseling psychologist, later on, in this broadcast, okay? So I want us to react to this. This is a man. He had to change his gender to a woman just so he could gain custody of his children. My goodness, where do I start? Joe, Mr. Joe.
Basically, thank you for having me in this show. Let me start by saying that shows how emotive this issue of child custody is. It's a very serious issue that affects mostly cutting across both the parents and the children. So when you see to this extent a man going to extent of going an extra mile of changing his sexuality to basically get the custody, the legal custody of our daughters, is one very clear indication that this topic is quite such an emotive one and a very serious topic.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Michael, what do you make of this? I'm curious.
Okay, it's quite interesting, given that like presented, the laws in that country is actually very, very inclined to women getting the child support. But we are lucky in Kenya that at least the law is fair. And in a situation where the law finds that the man can actually be given custody of the child, then it happens that, like the judgment that was done. But also, you find that many men who are actually close to their children and want to continue being closer to their children would revert to that extreme to actually be closer to the children.
I want to ask something. This is an unfair question, but it has come from you. So, would you do it if you got to that point, if push came to shove?
And that's the reason why I said it's an action that is quite extreme, because I wouldn't go that far. I would respect the judge's decision.
All right.
And probably also engage the court in a discussion where I would also have rights to the children.
Right.
Because biologically, if they are my children, they'll continue to be my children.
That's true.
And the love that I show them, I can show them even while they are with their mother. Yeah, because that love does not die. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Miss Anita, is the situation that bad in some countries?
Actually, this is quite interesting. Which country is this? if
This
I
is
may ask?
Ecuador.
Ecuador.
Yes.
For Kenya, and I can say for Kenya, we are a bit very fair, like Mr. Michael said. Children can, either parent can have custody of the children. That can, the father, the mother, they're entitled to have custody of the children under special circumstances. So I'm wondering in Ecuador, what do their laws look like? Because if a father can go to an extent of changing the sexuality for him to get custody of the daughters, I think they need to amend their laws.
Right, that's true. It's quite something. All right, and you mentioned home, that is Kenya, and let's come to Kenya. Now, in April 2022, a High Court judge, Joel Ngugi, made a landmark ruling where a man was awarded custody of his children after his wife divorced him during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, Justice Joel Ngugi said the law was not necessarily in the best interests of the child, and if we could quote him, he did say in most cases in this scenario, as in our country here, most fathers lose custody of their children because of gender considerations. That is Judge Joel Ngugi when he made a landmark ruling that indeed fathers can also have custody of their children. Again, I want us to react to this. We have alluded to it, of course. We seem to be progressive as a country. But again, now let me start with you, Anita.
Yeah.
What did you make of this?
For me, I think this is a very good case. It can be a locus classicus case. Because you see the Children Act says children of tender years meaning 0 to 9 years, are best fit to be in the custody of their moms. But from this ruling and many others that are not reported maybe for the public, dads have had custody of their children as well. There are special circumstances under which a man can have custody of the children. If I may say some, maybe if the mother is an extreme alcoholic, drunkard, maybe there's cases of neglect and abuse on the children, and then the best fit person to get custody is now the father. Yeah, so I think for me this is a very good ruling.
Right.
Yes.
Mr. Michael?
I also appreciate that the man was given that opportunity of actually getting the custody of the children, because for reasons that my colleague has correctly put, you find that at times children also need to be listened to, because they'll actually express who they feel they would be happy to stay with. And I think probably the judgment listened to the children and actually respected that the children also had a right and say in whoever they wanted to stay with. Yeah.
And I'm happy you've mentioned that, because we shall get to that. I'm actually wondering whether we should get to it later or just discuss it right now. Because let me just ask you, Miss Anita, I mean, if a child says, I want to be with my mom, I want to be with my dad, for instance, there's that phrase, the best interests of the child. I mean, how does the court go about that? Because does what this child wants, is it really considered?
Yes, because when the court is at a crossroad, or rather it needs for them to make the best decision, one, they can interview that child. There's that provision. Either parent or the court can ask for the children to be brought to court for a court interview. They can speak to the judge. And then because of the best interest of the child, this child is best placed. Their experiences and maybe what they have gone through or what they have seen their parents, maybe in a scenario where there is a lot of violence, these children are better placed to guide the judge and tell them, I want to be with my father or I want to be with my mom. And in the Children Act, there are those compelling reasons and the factors that are considered before custody order is made, one of which is the ascertainable wishes of a child. So for me, yes, the children's point of view rather is very much considered, because it is them who are going to be placed with a certain parent, and they need to be safe first, and for them to be comfortable and to enable them grow as children. Yes.
Let me play the devil's advocate here. I really don't like using that word. But then how does the court rule out, say, bribery, threats, or intimidation to the child?
It can tell.
From
because
either
you see,
parent.
When you speak to a child, you can outrightly tell if this child has been coached, one, or maybe their parent has threatened them. If it's in a case of a father, if you go to your mom, I will not pay your school fees, I will not give money, or for whatever reasons. You see, mostly children are very, I don't know if I can say timid or being honest. Let me say just honest. If you speak to a child and they've been coached, somehow you will tell. Yeah, because by the time even the court is calling this child to be interviewed in the court, there are children officers who have visited the homes. They have spoken to these children, they have spoken maybe to the teachers in school. So there's that habit. So they have managed to come up with an informed decision. So yes, in cases of threats and intimidation, the court will usually pick it up.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And even the children will actually innocently say, dadi alisema disi,
Yeah.
nikizungumza hivi hata nilipia shule ama hata nipatia kitu fulani.
Right.
Yeah.
Reminds me of when, you tell a child to tell whoever's coming to say that you're not at home. And Daddy,
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Joe, what was your reaction to this? I'm sure you heard about it.
My reaction is this. I'd like to say that the basic principle of child custody is based on the fact that both parents have an equal obligation. They have a responsibility to take care of the children, both parents. So if the law says that both parents have equal responsibility in taking care of the children, that means that is a law, and there is the interpretation of the law. And typically, to add on that, typically, each and everyone among the parents has a duty. Everyone has a duty to take care of the children, irrespective of sex. For instance, a mother is expected to pay child support to a mother, just as a father must pay child support to a mother. So when we talk about this topic of child custody, as I initially said, it's a very sensitive topic. And it's a very emotive one because it cuts across the feelings of the parents, it cuts across the reaction of the children and the society too. Because as you can very well understand, we live in a society. These are children, the parents have broken down, the relationship is no longer there. There are children that are in the picture. And now there is the issue of separation. The biggest question that we should be asking ourselves is, can a child really bear the burden of divorce? Can a child carry the burden of divorce? At most times, we parents tend to take our children through very difficult times with something that which, if considered, it should not be the norm. Because naturally, a child should have both parents, the mother and the father. So when these differences arise, it's not the wish of any parent, it's not also the wish of any child to be brought up in a family that is separated. So what am I saying? Well, if the law says that both parents have an equal responsibility of bringing up the children, irrespective of whether they are married, divorced, separated, or even never live together. That is one fact that each and every parent should understand and know that the responsibility of a child lies squarely to both parents.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was a landmark ruling there by Justice Joel Ngugi last year, 2022. And so tonight, on to the point, we seek to answer questions such as who goes with the children after divorce? What are the grounds for custody of a child? And what are the rights of a father to his child? And so on. That's the conversation we're having tonight, which has already kicked off, by the way. And remember, I did mention at some point we're going to be joined by counseling psychologist Dorothy Omolo, who's pretty much going to answer questions like what Mr. Joe here has asked on can a child bear the burden of a divorce, all right? So, Miss Anita, I want to start with you. I mean, we've pretty much listed or mentioned what custody is, what legal custody is. We've talked about a lot so far. But in a nutshell, just what does the law of Kenya say about child custody and maintenance?
Oh, child custody and maintenance, what people need to understand. When it comes to custody, either parent can get custody. And each parent has equal rights to their children. So it's not cast in stone that custody can go to the father or it can go to the mother. It can go to either of them. And then we need to understand there are two types of custodies. There is the legal custody and there's the physical and actual custody. The legal custody is where both parents are entitled to make decisions when it comes to the welfare of the children. And then physical custody is where which parent gets to stay with the child. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, and maintenance, like I said, maintenance also is supposed to be 50-50. It's equal. I think in 2019 or thereabout, Justice Ali Abideroni, sitting at the High Court Family Division in Milimani here in Nairobi, ruled that parental responsibility is supposed to be 50-50.
Right.
It doesn't mean that the father has to take the lion's share of the responsibilities or the mother has to take lion's share of the responsibilities. It's an equal responsibility between the two parents. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Michael, I shall come to you, but I want to engage Mr. Joe first because Joe, you've been saying, you know, how this is an emotive topic, and it really is. I remember I also said that when I started the show, but I want you to talk to our viewers and tell us your story, Mr. Joe, regarding this, regarding our conversation tonight.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. Let me say that it was back in 2019, during the COVID-19 pandemic. As you all know that during that time, things really hit families hard. So I happened to lose my job without any communication. And bearing in mind that the situation during that time was very, very, very wanting, I could not be in a position to provide for my family at that time. So this did not go well with my wife. So it ended up bringing several issues that were almost likely unresolved. The same that resorted to having to separate and raise our children separately. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. I want to know more. I mean, are you co-parenting? I mean, how has it been between you and your wife and the children, Mr. Joe?
Okay, we are co-parenting, but the most important thing to note is that we have to accept the situation the way it is, and look for a way out about it, because there are children here that are in the picture. Despite the fact that you and your spouse have a broken relationship, that does not mean that the children must be left to suffer. So in our case, we are doing it very amicably. We have agreed on how we're gonna go about it, and our children are well taken care of by both of us as co-parents. Yeah.
So the two of you, without a third party, sat and decided, you know, this is the kind of support that you, Mr. Joe, will be giving, and your wife, and you get a chance to see your children. I want you to take us through that.
Okay, basically, there are 5 basic needs that the children are entitled to. A child is entitled to the basic right to food, to shelter, to education, to medical provision. So when you take these 5 basic needs of a child, it's plain. A child must have shelter, a child must have education, a child is to have medical provision. So what we did, we had to sit down ourselves. Because when you read and when you understand the court process and how lengthy these court cases might take and the expense and the time, it is advisable for any parent who understands the legal consequences and who also understands the expense and the nature of the litigation process. It's usually very lengthy, it's very consuming, so it's an option. It's an option, but for most parents, it's advisable. Despite the fact that you've broken up with your partner, you should understand this one thing, that resources are scarce. And the thing that you are arguing about, the argument is about the children. Mm-hmm. The children are both yours.
That's right.
So if you have these children, you should come up with a formula yourselves. Because let me say this, there is no any pronunciation, there is no any declaration, there is not even any process, there is not even any surgery that can be undertaken by anybody to detach a child from the physical, emotional care of the both parents. Mm-hmm. So when you have this in mind, it's good to know that despite the fact that you are taking too much time concentrating on who will have custody to which child, either legal or what, at the end of the day, these children need both of you.
Right.
So when you come to understand that, and at that note, and understand that it's natural, a child must have and is required to be taken care by two parents. So when you come to understand that, the easier way is to agreeing between yourself how you're going to manage, right, and walk through that situation.
Right. Mr. Michael, I want to rope you in now. As member Men Engage Alliance, my assumption is your work deals with, a lot of men out there. And I want to know what the experience of most of them in regards to this conversation is, because again, like I said at the start, most of them feel shortchanged. Most of them feel that often the law acts in favor of women as opposed to the men.